welcome to the second module on accessing to premium markets. In this module, we will continue working and trying to understand what are the different factors that you need to keep in mind when accessing to premium markets, particularly what is in the buyer's mind, what are the different consumers' food drives that you might encounter or you might have to work with. So let's walk through the presentation and see you later. Well, this will be module 2 on accessing to premium markets. Thank you very much for watching. If you remember from the previous module, we provide you with sort of overview what we'll be looking at in the different modules of this course. We will start with opportunity assessment, so trying to understand, assess the different opportunities and challenges and different risks that are there for you if you want to access to premium markets. Then we will dedicate some time to understand the value proposition, the different narrative you will need to develop around it. And last but not least, we will provide you with support in developing the strategy in terms of accessing premium markets, as well as including developing a proper premium price. But before getting into that, we thought it would be very important for you to get to understand what is in the European buyer's mind. And why? Well, because we think that if you understand what is in the buyer's mind, it is very likely that you will understand and get to empathize with its constraints, the different worries, and the more you do that, the stronger your relationship will become, because you will be able to anticipate its own worries, as well as provide answers that are in line with what he is expecting, and so on. So that will create a really solid and long-term relationship, and eventually that is what we all want. We want suppliers that are trustworthy, and also buyers that are able to provide you a proper link to the final market, to the final consumer. So that's why we thought it would be very important to understand what is in the European buyer mind right now. If you look at the picture, you see that we have split the brain into 4 components. So the first one will be market brain, second one will be channel brain, communication brain, and money brain. Of course, this is a simplification. We all know that any person have 100 million more of things in mind. But we wanted to pay attention to the fact that a buyer, a trader in Europe, in everywhere, it's a person that needs to be juggling with the market and trying to understand what is the authenticity and differentiation of his products, what is coming about legislations, new legislations, compliance, sustainability, what is going on with the supply chain as a whole, but also on how to deal with new suppliers, with suppliers that are not really behaving the way he will expect, how to find the best suppliers out there, how to really improve the communication with both consumers and supply chain, to make sure that it gets the cleanest and the most honest and transparent communication, but also, of course, how to make business more efficient, and how to maybe fasten the production cycle, and how to make better packing, and so on. So all these things are in the daily business of any buyer, any trader. In addition to those, as if those weren't enough, we are all aware that COVID-19 brought us a great disruption of the markets. Here I showed you um, um, a specific comment from the FAO, from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, suggesting that the pandemic halted a period of economic growth that was going on during 2019, and that is expected a recession for many countries, including, of course, for African countries. And that is also in the mind of any trader right now. In addition, or actually linked to that disruption, we see a specific trend in Europe, both in continental Europe as well as the UK, and that is a trend of increase the number of taxes. We can all anticipate that we will be paying more taxes in 2021 and beyond. It is true that many of these taxes have been designed to drive consumers' behavior, like, for example, plastic taxes, carbon taxes to reduce the carbon emissions, and so on. Climate change taxes might be coming. It's true that all these taxes might have been thought to try to drive the consumer's behavior, but what is clear is that for the trader, for the buyers, those will represent a burden, both in terms of financial burden, but also in terms of trying to identify suppliers that can be allied in in this um, in this path. So if all of a sudden I need to change or at least reduce the number, the plastic that I'm using in my supply chain, I need to very quickly start prospecting and trying to identify new suppliers that can deliver what I needed. Otherwise, I will keep paying these different taxes that are coming. And the same line of thinking is about digitalization. The lockdown, the different lockdowns in Europe have really pushed um, companies to go towards digitalization, from the perspective of trying to support their workers to work from home, but also, again, in terms of supply chain management, trying to get more transparency, so trying to develop specific softwares that could support buyers in getting that transparency. And it's true that companies have done a lot of efforts in this regard, but at the same time, and as the page suggests, we see that it is estimated that 70% of the digital incentives that companies are doing in Europe do not reach those goals, or the goals that they intended to reach. And therefore, companies are losing money because they haven't been able to properly articulate the actual digitalization needs and the technological needs, including artificial intelligence. That can be because there is an unrealistic fascination for digital and technology that sometimes is understood as if there was the only way for innovation, which is not the case. Whatever the reason is, the fact is that managers need to be more aware of these losses attributed to early digitalization, and try to become far more specific on identifying the different priorities on why they really need to do the different changes and how to do it in a way that they don't incur into losses. So that is something that is also worrying traders, suppliers. At the same time, we see that, of course, in any trader brain, there will be also the different problems on supply chain. And that has been highlighted through the COVID pandemic. There are a few learnings that traders have got into. One specifically refers to uh, diversifying supply chains. As I think it's very clear for most traders that they need to diversify their supply chains, particularly trying to reinforce local suppliers and local supplying sources. They have also identified that the increasing specialization of different actors in the supply chain has brought as a consequence the fact that the supply chain is becoming longer and therefore more complex and therefore with higher risks. And that is something that traders are also taking into consideration for the year to come, trying to reduce risks and becoming more resilient. And of course, climate change and sustainability. We have already observed and read several papers and news about climate change becoming the new crisis, as well as social and environmental sustainability being top on the agenda of any company, particularly in Europe. We see investors increasing their scrutiny on climate risks, but also social and environmental risks. They are demanding more and more that companies have clear commitments as well as sound action plans to handle those risks. Uh, in parallel or in combination with those demands from investors, we also see an increase on compliance. The compliance dimension is getting bigger, including the legally binding obligations that companies will need to cope with regard climate change and sustainability. There is also a growing pressure for companies to deliver KPIs that are measurable and that are reliable in terms of sustainability, and all that will affect the different suppliers, because every time a trader is demanded to do something, that demand will cascade down into the different suppliers. So if you are a producer that is trying to get access to that market, you need to be aware of the constraints your partner in trade is facing, so you can anticipate and you can again collaborate with that trader to make his life easy, so you get your path towards the market also facilitated. So in addition to these big trends that are going on in terms of let's say the side effects of the pandemic, there is also the consumer behavior. Consumer behaviors has been always relevant for any trader, any company, and that has been even more important within and hopefully after the pandemic. So there are several what we could call food tribes that have been developed for the last decade or so. You see, for example, tribes concerning again sustainability and consciousness. You can see also food tribes about ancient knowledge and self-sufficiency or personalized nutrition. You see a lot of different food tribes being created and also orchestrated through social media like Facebook, like Instagram, and that seems to be the new way for consumer talking about products that they like, suggesting others to consume, and therefore it's also a great source for companies to be aware on what the consumer is actually looking for. And so what we see is that those tribes indeed has been exacerbated with the global trends that we see with the pandemic. There are other trends. I just picked up the top three that I thought will be interested for any African entrepreneur that is trying to get access to the European premium markets. One will be a trend about health boosters, another one about comfort and nostalgia, and the last one about adventure at home. Um, so I go directly to show you each of them. So you get to understand the way this could be related to your specific product or ingredient, whatever you are um, trying to sell to the European market. When it comes to mental and physical health as a priority, that was a trend, as I said, that has been growing already for a couple of years, if not decades. But certainly with the COVID-19 and the awareness consumers have had about their immune system and so on, they are looking for food and ingredients that can improve the hydration, the anti-inflammatory properties, and so on. You can also products that are very well reputed for having a lot of vitamins or probiotics. You will be on top on the consumer demand. Similar to that, we see also in the block of comfort and nostalgia how the consumption of sugar and fat will decrease. So because consumers again are more aware of their physical and mental health, and they will look for products and ingredients that are made with substance that substitute sugar and fat. So if you are a producer of something like could be stevia that is actually known for having similar properties to sugar, but actually being far more interesting, then you may have market advantage. The same with nostalgic flavors because of the lockdown and maybe because of all the crisis that has been surrounded to it. We see consumers being very much interested in flavors that give them reminiscence of their childhood, and that could be by seeking for familiar products, but with also with some new notes or novel ingredients, and vice versa. It could be completely new products, but they have a nostalgic flavor in the background. And the last trend is about adventure at home. As you can imagine, again, as a result of the different lockdowns, consumers are, in one hand, missing out traveling and having contact with exotic food and exotic experience, and therefore they will be looking for products that somehow can provide them with that experience, but at home, and also having something to do which is not very complicated, but at the same time that give them uh, some flavor of they are trying to learn something. So that could be products that are accompanied by the recipe or ready to drink recipes that could be, for example, premium bar cocktail or ready to eat, but with a little bit of work you have to do at home, and so on. So this is easy fermentation, as I mentioned here, or try to get the recipe for new dairy products. It shouldn't be too complicated. It needs to be very sexy and appealing, but that is a trend that can position your product into the premium market. So now that you know, in one hand, what we discussed in the previous module about all the different trends in terms of potential market competitors, and you also now get to understand what is in the buyer's brain, as well as what are the different consumers trends. I would like to give you homework that you can eventually share with us in the next meeting. So one is about thinking the 3 most relevant characteristics of your product or your company or your business idea, or the 3 of them. So, and that you feel proud of it and that you think could be a good angle to position your product or your company or your idea. Um, think also of the uh, what buyers challenges you think your product could provide an answer to, and also the same for the food tribes. Is there anything that your product already have or could have that will be appealing for any of the tribes you have seen here? So with this information, if you want to read a little bit more, I give you here the link for a study on the trends coming for 2021, risk in focus. But if not, we stopped here. I wish you a pleasant presentation. I hope you enjoyed and see you in the next module. Thank you. You liked the presentation and you found it useful for you. Please don't hesitate to share with us your comments, your concerns, whatever doubt you may have. We will be more than happy to help you. So please subscribe to the channel and see you for the next module. Bye.